So as well as being the in charge of the exam board, I am the convener for the MSc Climate Change program, and so this program's been going for about 12 years now, and I've been in charge of it for both as long as it's been around and for as long as I've been at UCL. The program is really focused on teaching the science of our changing climate, and its core is in the physical geography side of the department, and if you're familiar with the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change and its massive books, then we're looking at the physical science basis. It does obviously, well, climate change impacts right the way across society, and so it's going to combine some social science insights as well. There's a whole core module thinking about the other two chapters or volumes of the IPCC, so working group 2 and 3 on adaptation and mitigation. We're going to be, I mentioned there's a paleoclimate research cluster, so that means that in this program we're going to be thinking about both what's happened in the past, what we're seeing in the present, and then thinking about modeling the future. There's also thinking about not just what the future climate will be, but how that will impact society, and also the physical system. In the case of our MSc Climate Change, it's not a meteorology degree. It doesn't do any weather forecasting, and really, as I said, it's focused on the climate science. So we're not really tackling environmental impact assessments. We're not doing emissions accounting. It's thinking about really on climate change science. So can we move on? There's sort of the first term is focused, as is this across many of the MSc programs, on getting everybody's core knowledge up to the same standard. In this case, there's 3 compulsory modules, and then in term 1 you get a choice of either thinking about reconstructing past environments or thinking about tropical futures, so how the tropics are going to change, and that's shared with the MSc conservation program. So it's the climate as well as the ecosystems in the tropics, and then you start specializing. So we give you a lot more choice in term 2. There's a variety of different options and those get more specific because there are more options, and some of these are going to be focused really on technical skills that are going to be needed to support your dissertation. So there's a list of them there, and you can find them on the website. It's worth pointing out there's a field course in Ireland in May, and you'll hear about that. It's joined with some of the other MSc programs that will incur additional expenses. We need you to cover the costs of heading over to that field course in May, but we'll keep it as cheap as we can. There's also the option to take other modules from across UCL with my permission, and I'm quite lax, or I'm quite generous about that. You just need to demonstrate that it's somehow relevant and of the right degree class and doesn't have a timetable clash. Dissertations from the climate change program end up generally either being based in a laboratory, so that's either thinking about reconstructing past climate changes, or something really quite hands-on, or thinking about future climate change, in which case you're going to be pretty much constrained to living in model world, and that will invariably be much more desk-based. So let's have a look at the next slide, Josie, if we can. The students on this program come out with specialized knowledge of climate change and obviously very strong quantitative skills. There's going to be a focus on thinking about how to deal with climate projections and understanding those and interpreting those climate projections, and how we cope with climate change in the future. Roughly a third of the students on the program will head on to do a PhD. As I say, we've got a PhD program in the department, and there's a regular flow of students onto that. Not necessarily in the same year. It might be that people need to finish their dissertation before deciding that research is the right route for them, and then applying the subsequent year. But there's certainly a strong flow through in the department. About 40%, so the majority, I guess, not the majority, but the largest component of our students are going to go into the commercial sector. At the moment, these are mainly consultancies, things like ESG, so environmental governance and sustainability teams in corporations. There's a burgeoning market of climate services, especially in London, because that's in London, that's driven by the financial sector, where the banking regulation has required people to think about climate, and also and the same with the insurance and reinsurance industry. And there's a bunch of startups just sort of building a whole industrial sector around climate services. The other side, where students will head after graduation, is going to be into the civil service or NGOs, sort of thinking about, I guess, in effect, how best they can help tackle the climate emergency.